Hi and welcome back. This is episode 29, I believe, of fearmeitsbre. It might be episode 30, but I'm pretty sure it's episode 29. I'm kind of at a certs today. I just tried to record and I just couldn't get into the groove of it, so I'm gonna start over and try and make this a short episode, but we'll see what ends up happening because, I'm gonna give a quick little review of Avatar: The Way of Water because I enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I was going to. I know there's some woke elements in it, and yeah, they were there, but I have a take on it that may be unpopular, but I feel like I resonated with it a little bit more as a parent than maybe the average viewer would. And then I'm also going to talk about Rose Montoya, who was the transgender influencer who went topless on the White House lawn. Thank you, Timcast, by the way, for publishing an article about it that did not show the uncensored image. You guys shared the video, which I'm not going to play because I try and keep it family friendly here, but thank you to Chris Bertman for having his article have the censored version of the image because I wanted to talk about it, but I didn't want to share that image and just add to the mess. And I also know that I have some younger viewers, so I didn't want to expose them to it. So we're going to use a Timcast article for that because it actually, it doesn't show anything. Let's just say that. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about Candace Owens' response to it, and then Tim also responded to it. And I think that Twitter banter that they had back and forth about it's kind of fun. And then we're going to look at that article about how it's so hard to be a liberal woman when you want to date a man with traditional values, but you don't want him to be conservative. I know it's kind of an old article, but I want to look at it because it's funny. It is so funny. And if we have time, I might look at that stupid Planned Parenthood action Twitter thread that I haven't decided if we're going to get into that or not today. I know that Trump was indicted, but we're not going to talk about that today. I want to gather more intel on that before I just jump in. I was having a hard time this morning when I was researching, finding good information on it. So those are what we're going to talk about today. If you'd like to follow me on Instagram or Twitter, it's fearmeitsbre. We've had family from out of state, so I wasn't able to record Monday, and then I just didn't end up doing it yesterday. So my goal is the episode you're watching right now, and then tomorrow I would like to record and put one out at 6 p.m. as well. So hopefully that happens, and if we do, tomorrow I'll probably talk a little bit more about the Trump indictment. But today we're going to talk about the topics that I brought up. And we're going to start with Avatar: The Way of Water. So I know it's kind of old news, but I just finally watched it. My husband's a bit on the fence about it because both of us enjoyed the first one when we watched it, but we'd heard how woke it was and how blah, 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 and how this and how that. So both of us were like, it's such a long movie. And to sit through that and to sit through all the crap we've heard about it just doesn't sound like a good time. But we finally, I was more willing to watch it than him. I wanted to watch it more, and I finally convinced him to watch it. And last night he was like, yeah, let's put it on, let's watch it. And we started out kind of picking it apart because there are spoilers in what I'm going to say. So if you do want to watch it and haven't yet, you have been warned. So we kind of thought it was dumb at first because the guy that was the antagonist in the first one died at the end of the first one, and his consciousness got put in a new avatar, which is the blue Na'vi people, and it just seemed like a dumb revenge mission where we were just like, oh, this kind of is weird, like this plot seems kind of weak. But the further you progress into the movie, the less you're like, oh, okay, I can see how this works, all right. The humans seem like they need to do things here, and they need Jake Sully, the main character, out of the way, so they're going to send in a tactical team that have memories of him that they think are up to par to fight him, to ideally take him out. And just so happens to be the consciousness of the last guy that challenged and fought him because it makes sense. As he would know how to fight him because he has the memories. So I enjoyed the first Avatar, but it wasn't something that I was like, whoa. I mean, I watched it, came out in 2009. I watched it in 2018. So like almost 10 years after it came out. So just wasn't special to me like it is to some people. I enjoyed the second one more. I was pleasantly surprised. I know that there were environmentalist things in it where it was definitely a little narrative driven that way. It was a little narrative driven in the whole like, oh, we gotta save the whales. Look at that. It felt kind of Fern Gully again, where like, or as people have said, Space Pocahontas, where the humans are destroying stuff. Oh no, our ecosystem. And it just, that stuff was kind of like, okay. But with all of the James Cameron bullcrap that's floating around where he's saying things like, I wish I never made Terminator because it just adds to gun culture, and I wish that I didn't have so many guns in my movies. I'm going to stop putting as many guns in movies, and masculinity's bad. I expected it to be awful. I expected it to be off the rails woke. And the way that they portrayed the nuclear family in it was fantastic. So Jake Sully, the main character, time's passed since the first one, and he and his wife have like teenage children that their parents do. And instead of being like a typical what you'd expect a dad in a movie to be, where the teenagers are like, you don't understand me, dad. Oh, sorry, I was wrong, son. The father and mother figure were so distinctly different from one another in that film. Zoe Saldana's character as the mom, and Sam Worthington as Jake, who is the dad. They were very strong parents in it, where I thought that their depiction of parenthood was amazing. And just the role of the father and the role of the mother. And then their children, instead of just feeling like plot points where it's like, oh no, my children have been taken by the antagonist, must go save them. And the children are just like, save us, dad, the whole time. Their children actually had their own stories, and they felt like their own characters, where I could easily see them potentially in a movie down the road, killing off Zoe Saldana, killing off Sam Worthington, and having the children pick the story up and continue it, because they were actually characters that felt well written and I enjoyed. I did not enjoy how much slang they put in it, where like they'd say things like bro, and then there's a part where somebody goes, get away from me, perv, and I'm like, okay, that seems really weird coming from a culture that's not of Earth, and like would they know what that means? Like, that's just, I don't know. It just, there was some slang in it that felt too like on the nose modern, where it's like, hang on, bro, I got you. And I was like, all right, that's kind of weird. This doesn't fit well in the movie. And then I know they wanted Sigourney Weaver to be involved because her character Grace was a significant character in the first movie who died. And, she died at the end of the first movie. So what they did is they had an immaculate conception where her avatar body somehow was pregnant and delivered a child, even though she was no longer living. And Jake Sully and the wife adopt that child as their own. And what they did for the animation model is used Sigourney Weaver, which is fine, but they also had Sigourney Weaver voice her. Having a 70-something-year-old woman voice a 14-year-old took me right out of it, because it was weird and jarring and felt super out of place. I did not like that aspect of the movie. It really frustrated us watching it. My husband and I are both like, yeah, like she's a good character, but why would you do this? My theory with her, by the way, I think that this has probably been addressed, is that she's supposed to be like a Christ kind of figure, because the Na'vi that Jake Sully is a part of are the forest tribe, and they have to go on the run because they're being hunted and they want to protect their people. So they take off and they hide amongst the water tribes, and all of them struggle with picking it up, learning the ropes, except for her. For some weird reason, she's perfect at everything, and she's able to adapt quickly, unlike her family, her adoptive family. So my theory is, as they plan on going through the different tribes and having like the Earth Na'vi and the Fire Na'vi eventually in future movies, is that she's kind of a Christ figure, or Avatar: The Last Airbender. We could even go there, where she will bring them all together kind of thing, where the goddess in the movie that they worship or whatever sent them down to unite all the tribes, because the tribes are kind of their own things, don't really communicate, and don't really have a relationship with one another. So that's my theory, is by the end of the series, she will be the uniting factor or something weird like that. But anyway, I I enjoyed the storyline. There's a line in it at the end where the character Jake Sully says about the family, Sullys stick together. That is our greatest weakness, but also our greatest strength. After all of the carnage and chaos has happened, the reason that they survive is because of their family bond, which I know some people complained, because you have Kate Winslet's character, who is the wife of the water chief, and she looks like she's like 9 months pregnant, ready to pop. And there's a part where the antagonist, the colonel, has taken her daughter and 2 of Jake Sully's children, and they are, there's a chance that he will kill them because he's ruthless. And the chief of the water tribe says to his wife, Kate Winslet's character, no, you should stay behind because of how pregnant you are. And she's like, no, I'm riding, I'm fighting, I'm going. And I actually was okay with that, because as a mother, right, I thought they were going to use feminist tropes and be like, no, I'm a woman and I can fight just as well as the men. They didn't. The reason that super crazy pregnant Kate Winslet wanted to go and kick some butt is because her daughter's life was on the line. As a mother, I can resonate with that, right? Where you will do anything for your child. So it makes total sense. And then the other thing is, one of Jake Sully's children ends up dying, escaping. One of like the 5 kids or 4 kids, whatever it was, ends up dying. And Zoe Saldana's acting as a mother who has just watched her child die in her arms was chilling. It was absolutely chilling to watch this woman act this out. It was fantastic. Like, just thinking about it, I'm just like, wow. And then she goes on a rampage and just to try and get to the man who killed her son, just slaughters people. And some people were like, oh yeah, the woman, right? Of course, like, she's the one that's kicking butt and making things happen. Oh, so feminist. I didn't see it as that. I saw it as a mother who has just lost her child and is just blinded by that rage of, I'm going to harm the person who did this to my child. As a mother, I can understand that aggression and that adrenaline rush. As a parent, I think anyone who is a parent could resonate with this movie of, if something like that, if your child was murdered, I have a feeling that you wouldn't just be passive and quiet. So having her go on that rampage makes perfect sense to me, especially after watching her reaction to the death of her son. So for all of the woke nonsense that I had heard about this movie, and, James Cameron making his ridiculous comments that he's been making recently, I genuinely thought that it was not going to be good or enjoyable, but I was very much surprised by the positivity that they showed the role of a father and the role of a mother and the role of the children. And it was interesting how when Zoe Saldana is trapped underwater in a boat, potentially going to drown, and so is Sam Worthington, their children save them, but not in the typical kids save the parents kind of way. It just was very interesting how they did it. I thought it was kind of funny how, people have said the first one is like Space Pocahontas, and it's accurate, except that, the John Smith character doesn't get injured and leave forever, because the Jake Sully character stays and becomes one of the Na'vi people and, marries Zoe Saldana, and then leading into the second movie, that's a time jump and they have kids. I did kind of joke with my husband that it was Titanic in space, because 1, it had Kate Winslet in it. 2, it's a James Cameron film. 3, there's a whole scene where there's a sinking boat that they're trapped in, some of the characters. And there were literally, there's a part in Titanic where Rose is looking for Jack, and he's been caught and detained, and he's cuffed like this to a pipe or whatever, and he's like, you've got to get me out so that we can escape and not die here. And Kate Winslet, her character of Rose, runs up with an axe, right, like that you'd use to, an axe, and she runs up and has to hit the chain just right without hitting his hand, which, if you watch the movie and slow it down, she did hit his hand with the rubber axe prop, which is really funny because that means Jack should be missing a hand for the movie, but he's not. But anyway, she has to break that chain with the axe so that they can escape. And there's literally a scene where Jake Sully's children are like, in Avatar, they're like chained to a rail or something, and he runs up with an axe and does that. And we were like, oh, that's definitely a Titanic reference, James Cameron, a little on the nose there. And then there's another part where they're running through the sinking ship in Avatar, and there's like lights flashing in like the corridor they're running through. And there's a very specific piece, if you know the Titanic movie as well as I do, I have a problem, in the soundtrack where there's a part in the Titanic film where they're running through the corridor and the lights are flashing as like the water's building up and stuff, and it's a tense scene. And there's a very specific part of that soundtrack that I think James Cameron reused in Avatar for a very similar scene. And it was like, whoa, like deja vu, dude. Like, you definitely are using some of your own stuff here. But sorry, I have been interrupted by my son twice, so I've had to stop and restart and stop and restart. So I don't necessarily remember what I've already said and what I haven't already said. It's been a little chaotic. But anyway, I would give it a fairly favorable review, except that, I mean, there were a few woke things here and there. I don't know what they're going to do as they continue the films. They might just like throw things out the window. But I thought that the gender roles in it were, the Na'vi people were very dependent on their very specific, this is the female's role, this is the male's role in society. And if that balance is upset, we will all die. Especially with their positive spin on parents' roles, the role of the mother and being the nurturer and the role of the father being the protector. But there hits a point in the movie where the two mothers whose children are in potential life-ending danger, everything goes out the window and they're like, we're saving our babies. And I can resonate with that as a mother. So I thought that it was great. I enjoyed it immensely. I recommend watching it. It's long. It's one of James Cameron's longest movies, I think. So if you have a short attention span, you might be just kind of like, duh, the whole time. But I liked it better than the first one. If you've watched the first one and the second one, let me know in the comments what you think, because I'm kind of curious. But I genuinely liked it better than the first one. I would like to rewatch the first one as well and just kind of get a refresher on that. I knew the base storyline enough that I was able to continue into the second one without watching it, even though it's been like 5 years since I watched it. But I would say that I probably should have watched it first just to like have that refresher. But anyway, I liked it better. I liked the contrast of the father figure of the colonel, I can't remember his name, with the human character Spider. That was his name, Spider. He wasn't a spider. Was an interesting contrast to like Jake Sully as a father to his own children. So anyway, I think it is worth watching. If you do want to watch it, I recommend it. Sorry, I'm out of breath. Again, I had to help my son with something, so I just had to come back in and like, whew, okay, where was I? So, we're gonna talk about Rose Montoya. I don't know like how you say her name and stuff. And we're gonna talk about the White House now. So that was my Avatar: The Way of Water review. Go watch it. Let me know what you think. So we're gonna hop over to Twitter now. And Candace Owens started this whole thread. So for those that do not know, there was a Pride event at the White House, and Rose Montoya, I'm going to go actually to the Timcast article first. Rose Montoya is a transgender, male to female, activist and influencer and TikToker. And what he did. So there was an image that was uncensored that's everywhere. Again, thank you to Timcast for posting a censored version so I can talk about it and not keep my show, keep my show family friendly. So the tagline is, "Living in my truth, Rose Montoya responds to backlash after appearing topless outside White House. All you're doing is affirming that I am a woman." Not necessarily, Rose. So that the one with the flat chest and pants is a female to male. If you look at the uncensored image, you can see where her breasts are. There are removal scars. And the one in the half dress is Rose Montoya, who is a male to female transgender influencer who decided on the White House lawn at a public event to take his top off and shake his voluptuous prosthetic breasts at children, adults, old people, and, behave inappropriately. Rose Montoya, who identifies as a transgender woman, responded to criticism after being featured outside the White House topless during a Saturday Pride event. It has recently come to my attention that conservatives are trying to use the video of me topless at the White House to try and call the community groomers, Montoya said, noting women revealing their breasts in public is legal in Washington, D.C. Just because it's legal does not mean that it is morally right or okay to do. The transgender activists said they supported Freeing the Nipple, a campaign which alleges inconsistencies between men and women appearing topless in public. Of course they do. Why is my chest now deemed inappropriate or illegal when I show it off? Montoya continued. However, before I came out as trans, it was not. All you're doing is affirming that I am a woman. Listen, if you want to be considered a woman, whatever. Follow the same standards as every other woman, though. If you want to be considered a woman, you don't get a free pass just because you were a man beforehand. Now that you have breasts, now that you have womanly things, you now have to abide by the same rules that I do. Although, if I went to this event and took my top off, I'd get in trouble for indecent exposure, probably. Unless I said, no, it's fine, I'm trans. This is for Pride. Then they'd be like, oh yeah, girl, you do you. So, just the inconsistencies here are just so frustrating. And I'm not going to play the videos because, again, I don't want to promote and just be another person showing the lewdness. Let's put it that way. All you're doing is saying that trans women are women, Montoya continued, because for some reason people like to sexualize women's bodies and say they're inappropriate. The transgender activist noted fellow transgender identifying people who were born biological women were displaying their mastectomy scars outside the White House. I wanted to join them, Montoya said. I decided to join them and covered my nipples just to play it safe. So he did. He, was doing this and, covering that area. But he was still in your face overtly being sexual with the prosthetic breasts, or the breast implants, or whatever you want to call it. Just because you covered your nipples doesn't mean that you're not being sexually explicit. I wanted to be fully free and myself. Montoya said the transgender activists had zero intention in appearing vulgar or profane by appearing topless. Then I watched the video, I've seen the video, then why were you behaving the way that you did? I was simply living in joy, Montoya said, living my truth and existing in my body. The transgender activist highlighted the Saturday Pride event in a TikTok video. Happy Pride Month, President Biden says on stage in Montoya's video, Happy Pride Year, Happy Pride Life. Montoya is later featured posing with fellow attendees, including notable transgender identifying activist Jazz Jennings. President Biden received backlash for hosting the Pride event at the White House. Imagine if Jenna Jameson did this at a Trump event at the White House, said one user of the event, speculating the adult film actress appearing in a White House would be the top story of the evening news. Columnist Carol Markowitz echoed the user's sentiment. If a Republican president befouled the White House like this, there would be a dozen think pieces from conservatives about how wrong it is, she said. Where are the sane liberals calling this disgusting behavior out? Stop hiding into your beds. Liberals actually love that conservatives are fighting the gender war for them, Markowitz continued. They escape the infighting while knowing that the things have gone way too far. Biological men shouldn't compete in women's sports, and fingers crossed the right wins this one. Critics also noted the event featured the Progress Pride flag draped in between two American flags outside the White House, which one user claimed to be a violation of the American flag code. So that was a thing where the flag was flying. So according to flag code, the U.S. flag should be front and center right here, and any side pieces would be if you want to have the pride flag, you want to have the Christian flag, you want to have your state flag, but front and center should always be the American flag, and it should be higher than what's on the sides. So this is a direct violation of the American flag code. And I have also heard more left influencers and Twitter people being like, that's photoshopped. There was an American flag in that space right above that pride flag. There wasn't. Okay. There wasn't. So stop trying to lie. So we're going to go over to Candace Owens' Twitter thread on it and read what she and Tim had to say. And I'm going to be really careful with it and maybe not show all of it on the screen because I'd rather not show some of the images that are in it because it's like, but this one's okay. So I'll show this one. Rose Montoya is the name of the man who exposed his surgically created breasts to young children at the White House. The White House invited Rose, knowing fully well that he advocates for teaching sex to young children. He advocates for this openly on his Instagram page, and his Instagram page it's gross, to say the least. Candace added to this thread. Now the White House is turning its back on Rose for doing what Rose openly advocates for as a living, exposing children. Joe Biden is being a coward. The administration got exactly what they ordered, and now they are trying to blame what occurred on an openly mentally ill man. So Jean-Pierre and Biden and all of them came out and said, this is not a representation of what Pride is. This is not a representation of our Pride event. It never should have happened. Sorry, blah, blah, blah. And they're backtracking and being like, oh no, we got backlash for this. If nobody had said anything, they probably wouldn't have said anything about it. Tim chimed in saying, you should be praising Biden. He actually condemned the trans activists. And then trying to find, because Candace obviously replied to it, and I'm trying to find her reply. It likes to hide from me. Let's go to Tim's. I almost said Instagram, but it's not. Take me 2 seconds. Sorry. Oh, no. My light just cut. Should have charged it. I thought I had enough juice. Oh, well. It's okay. It's fine. Now you get to see me blend into the wall. All right. So we're almost there. It wasn't that long ago that they talked about it in their tweeters. All right, almost there. So this is the one I want to be careful with because there's an explicit image. So I'm going to actually zoom in my computer screen and cover the explicit image to show you Candace's tweet. Candace goes, "You're missing the point entirely," in response to Twim. Biden is only condemning this act because his voters were outraged. He invited this individual to the White House, fully knowing what this individual was and exactly how they behaved in public. His entire Instagram is dedicated to debauchery, and the image that my little face here is covering is an example of that. So I'm going to back out real quick. And then Tim responded saying... Candace continued, "Joe Biden is condemning this act to save face with his voters, not because he has an actual problem with it. So no, I won't be praising him for this utter act of cowardice." And then Tim goes, "And after realizing it was hurting him, he backtracked. Now is our PR response. Now you praise Biden in order to push the story and force him to keep condemning the behavior. Now we say, this LGBT pride stuff where they can dance naked at parades is bad. I agree with Joe Biden." Because I agree with Tim. He's kind of being like playfully facetious here. He knows that Joe Biden invited this person. He knows that Joe Biden doesn't care. But because of the backlash and the trouble that it caused, now we have the White House saying, no, people shouldn't dance naked in front of kids. Maybe we should tone this stuff down. And that's a good thing. Okay. You can use this to your advantage. Share it with all the people you can, because the White House has openly condemned pride activities and has openly condemned a pride event. Well, I not a drag queen, but like a transgendered individual for being lewd in front of children. Keep pushing, because now Biden has to double down on this and say that it was wrong, which is fantastic. This needs to be shared by conservatives, not necessarily the images, just the story of it, so that we can maybe win a little battle here. I don't know. I liked Tim's response to it. He's absolutely right on that count. Candace just isn't understanding what he's saying, that this can be used to conservatives' advantage. Pick it up and use it. So I like what his idea on it. I just think Candace needs to use the brain that God gave her and interpret what he's saying, because I know that she's smarter than that. So after that, we're going to head on over to the New York Post article. That is a little old, but I just find it so funny that it's very much rules for thee, but not for me. About, I'm a liberal. It's hard to find masculine men to date who aren't conservative. You know what, honey? If you want traditional standards and you want traditional values from a man, You might have to have a traditional conservative man in your life. I don't know. A single woman has made waves for lamenting on TikTok that all the chivalrous, masculine men in her dating orbit are conservatives. As a liberal woman, it is really hard to find a man who is willing to play the more traditional masculine role in the relationship in today's day and age who is not a conservative, said TikToker Ms. Petch. A man who wants to play on the first... Sorry, wow. Jeez, that got gross fast. A man who wants to pay on the first date, who wants to open your door, who has that want and desire to take care of you and provide, who is not a conservative. The Los Angeles woman said the men she's dated who do have these quality traits do not align with her political ideologies. As she clarified that just because she wants an old-fashioned gentleman, she does not plan to subscribe to a traditional housewife role. And obviously, as a liberal woman, I do want to be respected for my independence, and I do not want to have... Oh my gosh. As a liberal woman, I do want to be respected for my independence. I do want to have my own autonomy in the relationship and not be combined or confirmed to the traditional female homemaker and childbearing role, she said. So, that's... Geez, girl. So you want a man who's going to sacrifice, and whether you get married or not, right? Maybe she's not a marriage-minded person, even in a dating relationship. You want him to sacrifice everything for you and traditionally treat this relationship traditionally, where the man, the husband is supposed to treat his wife as Christ treats the church, laying himself down and sacrificing himself for her needs, and, you know, treat her as the woman that she is and the valuable person that she is. You want somebody to make all these sacrifices for you, and you want somebody to treat you with the respect that you deserve and not afford them the same thing, is what I'm getting from this. I don't want to compromise my morals and values just to find a man. What morals? But am I asking to have my cake and eat it too? Yes, you are. The TikTok set off a firestorm of comments. That's like saying I want to invest in something without having to do anything but get all benefits from it. One commenter scoffed. Yeah. Another chimed in. All I heard is I want someone to take care of me, but I don't want to take care of them. Yeah. Relationships, whether it's marriage or it's dating, is sacrifice for both people. It is mutual respect. I know the whole Tradwife movement, I'm not a huge fan of. I am a traditional housewife. I am, right? I'm married. I have children. I take care of the home and I take care of the children while my husband goes and provides for us. We're a one-income household. We have very traditional roles, but I don't blast my traditional role as the wife and mother and the maternal figure in the family as... I'm not naming names, but there's influencers that drive me insane and personalities that drive me insane because they do that. And they take this trad thing to the point of women should treat their husbands as if they're their boss. They're no more than an employee, you know, like, gotta whip that woman into shape, go make your husband a sandwich. And marriage is about being equally yoked, both spiritually and in your own mindset of the marriage. So Ephesians 5, I'm going to pull up real quick, and we're going to go from 21 to 33. This is the part that the whole trad movement likes to leave out. Submit to one another out of reverence for Christ. And now here's the part the Tradwife movement likes to throw out there. Wives, submit yourselves to your own husbands as you do the Lord. For the husband is the head of the wife, as Christ is the head of the church, his body, of which he is the Savior. Now as the church submits to Christ, so also wives should submit to their husbands everything. Husbands, this is the part they leave out. Love your wives, just as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her. That is sacrifice. To make her holy, cleansing her by washing with water through the word, and to present her to himself as a radiant church without stain or wrinkle or any other blemish, but holy and blameless. In the same way, husbands ought to love their wives, not treat them like their employee or they're some lower life form. Husbands ought to love their wives as their own bodies. He who loves his wife loves himself. After all, no one ever hated their own body, but they feed and care for their body just as Christ does the church. For we are members of his body. For this reason, a man will leave his father and his mother and be united to his wife, and the two will become one flesh. This is a profound mystery, but I am talking about Christ and the church. However, each one of you must also love his wife as he loves himself, and the wife must respect her husband. So in this submission does not mean that, as somebody said recently, your husband treats you like you're an office employee, right? I'm going to try and find something real quick. Wow, sorry about that. Hope my other light doesn't die while I'm, rambling on. I think it's in my replies, so I just want to find it real quick. About all of this Tradwife stuff. Sorry, I'm making you wait. I should have pulled this one up. All right, I know it's around here. Where somebody challenged me that submission isn't a good word to use for something like this, because here it is. So I responded to Pearl Davis's, if women must submit to men, doesn't that make men superior? I voted no on that. And I said, this is incredibly nuanced. In what setting are you referring to? An office job? A crowd of people in the street? A marriage? And someone challenged me on that. And this is more of a positive comment toward me, where people said, people are throwing around the word submission a lot these days, but it's a poor choice of word. Men and women are complementary to one another. I said exactly, especially in a marriage, as exactly to the complementary part. Especially in a marriage, wives are supposed to submit to their husbands, yes. But husbands are supposed to love their bride as Christ loves the church, and honor and respect her, not treat her as a lower life form, as I just read and said. Marriage isn't one dominant over the other. It is sacrifice and honoring to one another from both parties. Somebody said to me, submission is probably a bad word then, since it isn't an equal partnership. And I said, not necessarily, because both husbands and wives are required to submit to one another in the biblical sense that they serve one another and each put the other's needs before their own. It doesn't mean that one or the other throws their hands up and lets the other control them. Our modern translation understanding of the word is different than the original text, and in translation, sometimes the words we have that are close to it don't always translate over well. So this woman does not strike me as somebody who wants to be in a marriage where she has to make sacrifices for somebody, or even a dating relationship where she has to make sacrifices to honor somebody else. In a marriage, you were supposed to honor one another and complement one another. Submission really means to respect one another, and especially the wives are to respect their husbands. And this whole Tradwife movement has it. Some of them get it right, but some of them have it very wrong, where like Pearl Davis is, I'll just say the names now. Pearl Davis is the one that was saying that you should, like Matt Walsh and her had an argument where Matt Walsh was like, she was saying that like men should never ask their wives over scheduling conflicts. They should just put their foot down and tell their wives, honey, we're doing this Sunday afternoon. And Matt was like, not necessarily, because my wife is the one who I ask, hey, honey, are we doing anything Sunday? Did we make previous plans because my buddies want to go out for a beer? Is that all right? Or did we already make a plan? He's not asking his wife permission per se, but he made the point of, sometimes I forget. Sometimes we make plans and my friends want to do something or someone wants to do something and I have to refer to my wife and say, hey, you're better at keeping track of this than me. Did we already plan something or am I good? And out of respect for one another, if you just are like, I'm going for a beer with the boys, bye, wife, that's not respecting her. To say, hey, I want to go do this, but are you all right with that? That is respect. Vice versa with my husband, and I want to go out and I want to do something, or if he gets home and I want to run to town or something, hey, are you okay if I run to Walmart or such and such or this? Or are you okay if I spend time with my friend that I'm close to? Because she and I don't get to see each other super often. Are you all right with that? Because that would mean that you'd have the kids all day. Out of mutual respect for one another, we make sure that the other is okay. with our plans. He doesn't tell me, no, woman, I'm doing this, regardless of what you say. He always makes those sacrifices for me, and I make those sacrifices for him, and that's what a marriage is, and it's a compromise. So this whole, some of this Tradwife stuff, I don't know. I'm not going to keep going off on that rant, though, because I got to wrap this up pretty soon. We'll finish this article real quick. Others had a bipartisan solution. Your morals and beliefs don't have to be in sync with your husband's. What matters is you are both to compromise and work together. Yes and no, because again, marriage, you should not be unequally yoked, spiritually at least. Right? So if I wanted to raise my children in the church and I married a man who was totally against it, there's going to be conflict down the road, right? Those are things you have to work out. So, you know, if you are that different, you are going to have conflict down the road. You've got to make sure that you align at least on the important things and go from there. This is the girl, I guess. The TikToker did, however, receive some support with one responding, and this is why so many women my age are still single. Maybe stop being TikTok OnlyFans girls. Just saying. Another, meanwhile, suggested that she change her zip code if she wants luck finding a man who meets her criteria. The men you are describing do exist. However, I don't know if LA is the best place to find us. Just saying, one user responded. And yeah, that's not incorrect, because there are middle of the road, not necessarily super woke men who are this way, but I'd say more middle of the road men who are willing to be the sacrificial leader, who are willing to, but you're probably not going to find them in California. I'm sorry. Geographically, that just doesn't work out. Regionally, that just doesn't work out. But that's the thing, right? This feminist movement of, I want to be treated as an equal. Don't you dare get the door for me. Don't you dare pay for my dinner. No wonder men are afraid to do anything that's chivalrous, because then women are like, you're just being misogynistic and sexist and part of the patriarchy, and that's meant to hold me down. Because you never know if a woman's going to act like that, or if they're going to be like, oh, that's so sweet of you to hold the door for me. Thank you. Every woman deep down secretly does want that. They want that chivalrous leader who's going to lay down their jacket on the puddle and, like, you know what I mean? But the modern feminist woman does not want to admit that. In a follow-up TikTok video, the TikToker says she proved naysayers wrong. She dished on a recent date with a man who seemed, they said, so share. That's a typo in New York Post. It should be a man who seemed to share her similar progressive values and wants to help his wife with household duties and childcare. I'm confused because she just said she didn't want to be a traditional wife with children and be the traditional matriarch of the home. So, I don't know. That is exactly what I've been looking for, so I hope it works out, she said. The post reached out to the TikToker for comment, and I guess she hasn't said anything or whatever. But, so that's the thing. Like, my husband, it's not just like when people think of, oh, 1950s housewife, the husband gets home and puts his feet up while she's still slaving away, and the children are running and screaming, and he's, honey, can you quiet them down? I'm trying to read the newspaper. No, that's not a marriage either, because the father is supposed to be the head of the household, and he is the one who helps rear the children. It's a partnership, right? Avatar, The Way of Water, portrayed that very well, I thought, where both parents are actively involved in this, and it's not just the mother, and it's not just the father. But anyway, I don't think I'll go into the Planned Parenthood stuff today. Maybe I'll save it for tomorrow. I just wanted to rant about those few things. And again, you can find me on the social medias at fearmeitsbre. And I'm going to let everyone go, and my plan is to record tomorrow. Hopefully it happens. I got to splice this video together because I had those couple of interruptions. I hope that it's coherent, and I hope everyone has a great rest of their afternoon. Watch for a video tomorrow. Unless plans unexpectedly change, there should be one. And this one, well, I mean, it's, if you're watching it, it's already up, so I guess that's irrelevant. But plan is for this to be up around 6 o'clock tonight. So have a great afternoon. Have a great rest of your day. And if I'm not back tomorrow, plan to be, but if I'm not back tomorrow, I will be back on Monday as far as I know. So have a great afternoon, and I will see everybody next time.